It doesn't take long for a person new to the sporting world before they encounter classic book titles such as The Upland Shooting Life, Troubles with Bird Dogs, or An Affair with Grouse. These are but a few of more than 20 books authored by George Bird Evans. His pages portray the blissful life he and his beloved wife Kay built for themselves at their iconic home in West Virginia, Old Hemlock. That might sound familiar, for that was the name Evans gave the kennel for the rhyme and style of English, setters he bred as well as the foundation he created. While his fame is closely associated with his writing and his classic bird dogs, George was a true Renaissance man, possessing lesser-known yet equally impressive talents. He was a skilled musician on multiple instruments. In fact, he first met Kay while playing saxophone in a dance band during college. More so, George Bird Evans was an accomplished artist. It may come as a surprise to readers that his career as an illustrator began nearly a quarter of a century before the publication of his first book. George's formal education commenced at Carnegie Institute of Technology in Pittsburgh, followed by advanced studies at the Art Institute of Chicago. In 1927, George's aspirations led him to New York City, where he worked as a freelance artist, creating advertisements and illustrations. However, by the time George and Kay married, New York City was in the throes of the Great Depression, and illustrating work was hard to come by. The Evanses learned the art of living simply while George continued to hone his skills and build his portfolio, holding on to hope that he would find a permanent job as an artist. In 1938, George took several illustrations to the offices of Cosmopolitan magazine. The art director examined his work and, leaving George behind, took them into the editor's office. When he returned a short time later, George was presented with a considerable contract offer for $750 per month, a providential result, with the nation scarcely rebounding from economic recession. Claiming his big break, George set to work illustrating detective stories for the magazine, using period-appropriate paintings of glamour, intrigue, war, and culture, boasting a colorful pop art style. For quite some time, George and Kay had longed to move back to the Alleghenies, and this became possible once George found work. A year into the art contract, the couple fortuitously purchased a farmhouse near Brandonville, West Virginia. The editors at Cosmopolitan agreed to the long-distance move, and in 1939 the couple set about restoring the old home on the charming property which would become Old Hemlock. Once George and Kay settled in, George would spend the first week of each month at the grind completing his illustrations for Cosmopolitan, and the rest of the month exploring the surrounding land. World War II changed things. Rather than waiting to be drafted, George sought out a role as an artist. He taught himself to read blueprints and draft copies and to make precise drawings of equipment. George then presented his drawings in Washington, D.C., and offered to contribute his skills to the military. Joining the U.S. Navy, he served in the Bureau of Aeronautics Engineering Division, copying blueprints and drawing machinery parts for equipment repair manuals. Following the end of the war, George returned home and published his final illustrations for Cosmopolitan. After 20 years as a working artist, George felt ready to broaden his horizons. The accumulation of hunting experiences he captured in his personal journals inspired him to start writing about the upland gunning lifestyle. He began writing and publishing works about grouse hunting, his line of setters and Appalachian life. Sketches of his beloved setters, birds, and coverts he hunted appear throughout George's books. Steve Smith, who was publications director for Village Press, Inc. and editor of the Pointing Dog Journal, remarked, "Of all the authors I have worked with, George was the only one who not only wrote captivating stories full of sage advice and reflection, but also illustrated his own work." Though he transitioned from artist to author, George never stopped drawing. He recorded life at Old Hemlock through detailed hunting journals in which hundreds of sketches complement his cursive penmanship. With grateful willingness, my husband Brandon is in the process of transcribing George's journals for the foundation. 65 years' worth of personal and historic accounts will be recorded in a digital format with descriptions of artwork George incorporated. The sketches throughout these handwritten entries offer glimpses of his greatest delights: an English setter on point, ruffed grouse in flight cover, or wildlife encountered. The simplicity of the art shows Evans's principal realities. I picture him closing his eyes and, with a knowing smile, envisioning the subjects he was keenly familiar with. He effortlessly recorded shapes, lines, and curves in a way that brings attention to key features, with a matter-of-fact style that simultaneously arouses emotion. Basic depictions artfully capture motion and movement, and widening strokes reveal depth. It has been said that art is a form of self-expression. Similarly, Evans believed, "A gunner's paradise lies within himself." I am therefore confident that his art explores that blissful state which comes from his devotion to his dogs and his reverence for the bird, summarized with his fervent challenge: "Be worthy of your game." The Old Hemlock Foundation and West Virginia University Libraries have collaborated to make available the George Bird Evans Collection, which includes sketches. Visit gbe.lib.edu to learn about Evans's life, anthology, and more. oldhemlock.org